Hey everyone, I'm Matt Burns and this is TechCrunch Live, where founders help other founders build better venture-backed businesses. And oh boy, we got a good show for you today. I'm very excited about this. TechCrunch managing editor Ingrid London is here to talk to Mark Goldberg of Index Ventures and Rick Song of Persona. The topic is very timely with the explosion of AI tools and services over the last few months. Persona offers a range of services to provide digital identity because most businesses are not equipped to handle this task properly, nor do they really want to. There are just too many pieces and the threat vectors are constantly changing. Persona does the dirty work and they do it well. So I'm excited to have Ingrid do this interview. She's covered Persona since their launch in 2020 and knows the market well. And she's just the best. You're going to love her. We're going to take questions today too. So if you have any questions, please put them in the Hopin chat. And then we'll shoot them over to Ingrid as soon as you do. So with that being said, let's turn the show over to Ingrid. Ingrid, how are you?
Thank you, Matt. Thanks very much. Hi, everybody. How are you? As Matt said, if you have any questions at all that you think of as we're chatting or things that I'm not asking that you wish I was asking, please send it through Hopin and we will try to get those questions answered. Although I can't believe that I won't think of the good questions, but thanks so much to have for coming, Rick and Mark. It's great to have you guys here. Let's just get right into it. So Rick, Persona, very, very interesting company. You guys have been around since I think about 2015. Is that right?
We were actually founded in 2018, so a tad younger than
18,
that.
Sorry, 18. Okay. So you guys have been around for several years. You started out with like verification tools and kind of an API to let companies kind of work that into their services so that anytime they need that service, rather than building it themselves, they can quickly plug it in and use it. Then you kind of expanded into a larger platform play. Maybe you can just take us through a little bit where the opportunity is for you guys right now and where you're seeing your kind of newer move, which started, I think, last year into the wider platform versus your big bread and butter verification management.
So taking a step back in terms of like kind of where we first started, for myself, like we start off in the identity space really from the perspective that there wasn't going to be a one size fits all to tackle identity. And this kind of came firsthand from my experiences at Square, where originally a lot of the identity techniques we were really applying at that time was largely focused towards compliance purposes, and then gradually towards fraud, and then increasingly towards trust and safety, as well as Square's overall platform expanded to do anything from food delivery to payroll, business banking, to, of course, later on Cash App. And this perspective of like this not being a one size fits all was really the catalyst for like, how can we create Persona, where we took more so of a building blocks based approach towards solving identity in a uniquely tailored way for any business out there. So whether you are Coursera or Reddit, whether you are DoorDash, no matter what business you are, you kind of can create the ideal identity experience for your business. And speaking about like this transformation of the platform approach, what we're actually seeing increasingly within the identity space is, in the past, we oftentimes thought about identity as this one-time interaction where when you sign up, you prove yourself, get that blue check mark, and from that point onward, maybe, this account is yours. But for a lot of these services, what we're finding is that increasingly they need to know that it's the same physical person behind the screen for every single interaction. If you're going to get alcohol delivered, you have to make sure it's the same person receiving that delivery. If you are taking a test on Coursera, it has to be the same individual, verifying themselves, the same person who signed up for the account is the same person who gets this credential. And this kind of lends itself towards this idea of, well, identity isn't just this one-time transaction, but increasingly a relationship. And that's where a lot of this original kind of idea around the platform itself came to be. We've been thinking about that since like kind of 2018, but breaking into the market's always difficult from like an organic platform play. So trying to find that wedge initially from a transactional, like how can we solve essentially the highest risk, lowest pain point, hopefully for a business type of use cases first, lowest risk, highest pain point use cases, and then gradually expand across the entire life cycle of the business's needs. So that's kind of where we saw that opportunity, is this increasing idea of identity matters across every single touch point for organizations.
Okay, so that's quite interesting. So you're basically like digging deep into a business and kind of providing something to help the business manage the person across all of their different products. But, I know that the part of what you guys are doing, which is quite interesting, and we're going to talk about the AI aspect in 1 second for a different reason. But one thing you're doing is you're kind of using to sort of prove a person is who they say they are by kind of triangulating a lot of data across the wider web. Now, that obviously opens an interesting door to you guys potentially helping people across the web wherever they go. So right now you're working for businesses, but have you guys ever considered where you might turn that around and work for the user? Is that something that you guys are looking at all? Or do you feel like that's a different kind of product that would work somewhere else? I mean, I know Facebook tried it, didn't work. They kind of fumbled the ball on it. LinkedIn probably had a great opportunity, which they also fumbled. They never really did do the verified thing. Google tried it, of course, with Google Plus. That also didn't work. Although nowadays you still get prompted all the time to log in when you're on a Google product. Anyway, do you think that there's an opportunity for that? Is that something you guys would ever want to do?
I think in the immediate term, our focus definitely is on the business first.
Yeah.
Longer term, I think the biggest challenge around ever going into consumer, especially in our space, in which we're not just dealing with digital identifiers. So unlike Facebook, LinkedIn, Google, where I would say these are more so digital identities in a sense of, I always joke that back in high school, my dog had a Facebook account that was managed by myself. So it's kind of a different world at that time. For us, we're dealing with kind of the most sensitive personal information. And as a result, a lot of our focus and our perspective is that privacy is just as important. And going towards that direction raises a natural question around digital surveillance, around privacy itself. So a lot of how Persona has always been structured is from the idea of we build infrastructure for businesses. We're more like an AWS, a GCP in that sense, in which we offer a variety of services, but the data, all the interactions, as much as possible belongs to the business itself. So that way, when you establish a relationship with any business out there that's collecting your personal information, you know who it's going to. You're not wondering if it's going through some third-party processor or anything on that front.
Right.
That said, I don't want to sell the benefits of having kind of a be able to reduce fraud and maybe hopefully reduce friction across kind of all user demographics. But if we were to go down that route, I think we do so in a way it has to be opt-in from the user and really kind of a consumer first approach. And I don't think that's something in our immediate purview. A lot of our emphasis right now is building that best infrastructural layer for businesses. And I think there's a lot more to be done there.
I mean, of course, and this kind of, I want to bring in Mark here really to talk about the kind of investment opportunity in the space. But I mean, obviously, I would say that if anything, especially since COVID and the massive swing into more and more and more digital services and more things being kind of initiated and consumed over digital platforms, I would think that the opportunities for what you can address and do for, your customers has only grown, and maybe the demand has as well. So, I mean, I'm assuming there's a big horizon, but there are also tons more companies in the space than there were even 5 years ago. So maybe we can just shift that to Mark and ask you that question, if that's okay, Mark. You guys have Persona. I know that, generally VCs try not to kind of, invest in kind of things that overlap and compete with each other, but presumably you're looking at the space a lot. What are you seeing in the market right now in terms of identity verification and trying to get that piece right? Are you getting a lot of pitches of that kind? Are you seeing interesting things happening there?
Well, first off, thank you guys so much for having me. It's such a pleasure to be on the show. And
thank you.
I feel like you just did my job for me in teeing up this question, which is one of the things we're looking for as investors is huge markets, big trends that we can get behind with the right thesis. And one of the themes we've been pulling threads on for really 5, 6, 7 years now is around this sense of, and you just described in the tee-up, but more of your life is moving online. Obviously, that accelerated the pandemic, but I think it's still, if you look at e-commerce penetration, it's still less than 20%. And if you think of just the way that our lives are moving on the internet, one of the derivative plays of that is, well, you need to know who the person is that you're talking to. I love just learning that Rick's dog in high school had a Facebook account. I mean, I think we can all kind of understand the sense of, the importance of trust as that identity moves online. So it's a space that we've been looking at. And to tie into your second question around competition, actually, before we made the Persona investment, we did not see differentiation in this category. I actually thought this was going to be a race to the bottom in terms of the number of vendors that were coming in. one of the big signals we got and we constantly use as we're evaluating new investments is we talk to our portfolio companies, Index Ventures, multi-stage fund with 10 billion under management. That's a great source of diligence for us. So we talk to Robinhood, we talk to Remote.com, we talk to many other companies that were digital identity was extremely important. And at first, what we heard is they're all the same. And then in kind of the end of 2019, early 2020, we started to see customers, portfolio companies come back to us and say, hey, we just spent 6 months baking off all of the vendors in this category, and Persona is the 10x experience. We're signing large contracts. Here's why we love it. And when you start to hear that kind of customer feedback, especially from people you trust, you've been working with, it really started to get us interested in the business. And that was one of the precursors for our investment.
So does that imply that there is a lot of garbage out there that kind of says that it's doing a job in helping companies kind of, find, root out fraud and, impersonators and so on. And then there are a few things out there that are good, or that, it's just a really tricky area. And I mean, what does that say about the market?
So, I think Rick will have better perspective, but from the investment side, I think what I've learned, we've been investors for 3-4 years now, is just how complicated this problem is. Mm-hmm. And so this is, I wouldn't say that there's junk out there. I would just say it's an extremely difficult, multifaceted and dynamic problem that requires an extremely sophisticated player to solve it. And I think one of the things we can, and I was really hoping we could turn this to, you mentioned AI earlier. I would be remiss not to mention, the Drake versus Weeknd song and how that broke, and everybody trying to understand who is creating content on the internet and how does identity relate to that. I mean, this is something when we made the original investment, I never anticipated, and yet the problem is exacerbated by these trends. AI has been a gift to fraudsters and a real challenge for companies. But I think that creates the sort of complexity of a problem, which lends itself to a strong technical team building some moats around this, and that's what we've seen so far. But Rick, I'd be curious to get your sense of the market too.
Yeah. So Rick, just so I can say, I know you guys use a lot of AI in your technology, in your algorithms in order to do your work. But yeah, I mean, this is the big thing now, is that it's just getting better and better, and so strikingly good at helping the fraudsters do their dirty work. The bad actors now have so many more tools at their disposal. And I know this is a big concern for, the open AIs of the world. They're rightfully quite alarmed at how it could get abused, misused, and so on. What are you seeing now? Is that already coming up as an issue for you guys? Is that coming up for your customers? Are you building to address that? What's the story there?
Well, I'll touch on the first one really quick, because I definitely want to call out that this space, there's a lot of really, really incredible innovation out there. I definitely don't think that, it's a kind of an ocean of garbage by any means. I think the biggest challenge that we've seen historically—
That was a little overstated. I'm sorry about that. Yeah.
No, I'm messing. I apologize. But
I was just yanking the chain. Yeah. Okay.
No, I think the challenge within it has always been that the question itself is actually very multifaceted, right? Because at its core, it's a combination of, is it a human? Is it, who is this human? Is it the same person? And how certain am I that they are? And what I think as we've seen over the past 10 years, and I promise this will tie into the AI question as well, is that the question constantly evolves. And that's what's made it so challenging. We see new kind of solutions constantly come through. 10 years ago, it was putting in your SSN, and at that point, it must be you. You have to be human at this point. If you know social security number, later on, it became those annoying questions about where did your, mother, where was your mother born, or where do you live when you're a child? Then, can you SMS a phone number? Well, if you own your phone, how could it not be you? Couldn't be your friend possibly just holding onto your phone for a brief moment. Today, you don't see kind of the rise of biometrics and, a documentary-based, evidence-based approaches towards identity. The perspective I think that we kind of had was that increasingly there just is not a holy grail to solving, identity. There's not going to be a silver bullet. And our approach was more so, what if we brought all these different innovative approaches together? And I think that's kind of what in the past made it such that it was difficult to differentiate. Increasingly for us, it's well, this might be the new trend, but how about we also stay up to date with you? We're not going to promise you that this is what's going to solve all your problems in the future, but instead you're working with a partner and a platform to kind of stay up to date. And with that, I think LLMs and generative AI it 100%, I think, right now has a tremendous amount of impact on the identity space right now. Just this morning, I saw that Wendy's is replacing a fair number of their customer service representatives with an LLM to do a chatbot to like have this conversation on your behalf. And I was joking with a friend that if you can do that, I guarantee they can fish as well. It must be incredible. You know, if it can take an order, and some of these orders are complex, I guarantee it can fish for your password very, very quickly.
For sure.
And I think what we're going to see kind of the emergence here is that every single interaction online that has to be sensitive. I mean, first off, I want to say there will always be an internet that's fully anonymous. I always joke with others that I don't want folks to ever find out any of, you know, the content I produced when I was in high school. It's, if anything, just embarrassing. So anonymity online is important.
What about high school? What about like last night or last week? You know,
well, I've been trying to be.
I don't want people to know my Google searches. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
But
yeah.
I mean, I think like increasingly we're going to see kind of a whole world in which every single interaction, there's a lot that matter that there's the same person. I joke that in the past, Netflix didn't care who I was, but clearly they've changed their opinion about that as of late. But on that front, I think we're going to see a lot of that. And for all of this generative AI, I mean, I think that's the big thing is, well, with the rise of this, we're going to now care more so about the provenance, who the person is, more so than the content that's being produced, because who's producing that content is going to be increasingly important. And we're going to need a lot more techniques to continue to solve that. And I think that's why it's so important to work with a platform instead, because, you know, in a couple of years, we're seeing that deepfakes are incredibly powerful now. So you can't just rely on biometrics anymore, or at the very least, you have to rely on multi-factor kind of biometrics instead.
Is the, I mean, I completely agree. But do you think the tech is there already to detect a deepfake?
I think that it is, but I don't think it's by like detecting the deepfake. I think it's more so by detecting all of the auxiliary kind of signals that also might point towards it, right? If it's automated, that oftentimes means from, you know, kind of a signal perspective, if to even put in a deepfake, that means that you have to inject the camera so you can try to detect it from that end. And there, you know, I'm like listing out a variety of vectors, and I don't want to suddenly have like every fraudster listening to this call saying, "Oh, here's all the techniques to detect how to like bypass." We only have so many ideas, but on that front, I think that there are so many there that's difficult to kind of go through every single one of these. And I think of it a lot more as the future of kind of fighting fraud, detecting kind of bad actors, is much more through a holistic approach of many, many different things in which like it's impossible for a single fraudster to just think of everything. And I think in a lot of ways, modern security oftentimes tackles things this way. It's no longer by creating the most sophisticated lock in the world anymore, right? Like back in the day, you could build like a really great vault and say, all my money, well, you can never break this lock. Today, it's through many, many different kind of factors, anywhere from human security, otherwise. And I think that's kind of the same direction we're going to see for identity is it's not just about your biometrics. It's not just about a single piece of evidence. It's about everything.
Okay, I'm going to switch it back to Mark because this actually makes me think of a good question for you. So I know that when we were prepping for this call today, we were talking a little bit about platform play versus like point solution stuff. I think it's really relevant in this space because you've got a company like Persona, which is very much a platform play. And in fact, Rick, you've just talked about all the different ways that you're sort of bringing in so many different types of measurements and analytical points. So that is great. But what that also, to me, says is that it slightly moves away from, or at least for now, maybe, are we moving away, Mark, from maybe these very, very targeted startups that have very, very specific solutions, like whether it's just a biometric or something analyzing voices. You know, like I once wrote a massive funding round for a company that just does voice analytics. You know, is that going to hold water these days? You know, given we've got such a tight funding environment right now, you know, the money's not flowing the way it was even a year ago. You know, Persona last raised in 2021. You know, given all that, do you think that that's kind of moving us? You know, what does that say for the startup that's developing one really hot but very narrow piece of tech versus those that are kind of trying to be a little more sort of broad church about the whole thing?
Yeah, so Persona broke the paradigm I had used until investing in Persona to make investments, which was find a company that does one thing very well, get behind them, and then wait for them to go multi-product down the road. that had been the kind of the wisdom I had been given when I joined this fund 8 years ago, and had been very much my experience in how do you build a successful company. So when Rick approached this from a platform first as opposed to product first, I was very skeptical. I think the danger in going platform first is you try to do too many things with limited resources, and it's death by 1,000 cuts. If you do nothing well, you're jack of all trade, master of none. That's a recipe for failure. I think what I learned from spending more time with Persona before we made the investment, and what has really changed my perspective, is that sometimes the only way to win a market is to create a solution that's so comprehensive that you start to see the customer demand, not for one product or one feature, but for the entire solution you're selling, and that there's no way to solve a market besides being platform first. Now, that doesn't mean that that risk that I described isn't real. It is. And in a lot of ways, Persona could have died early on the vine because of the strategy it took. It was fortunate to have a very strong team and a very strong balance sheet from the beginning. But in the case of this market, a feature-based approach was not going to win. And that was something that I actually learned in the process of making this investment. I'm very grateful for the time, Rick, we spent talking about this, because it really was not clear to me that was going to be the case here. It's very obvious to me now that there are some markets where people are not looking for you to solve one burning pain point, but they need a solution to solve a much broader set, of which Persona is well positioned. So specifically, Ingrid, to your point of, just the startup that's just doing voice AI or just doing this. No, I don't think it's categorical. And I think that, I would still give the advice of find acute pain, solve it. And what investors are looking for is, can you create a huge business over time? Now, whether that's a linear path or whether that's, going from a product first, or a platform first, I think the paths can vary to that outcome.
Okay. Listen, I'm turning the question around platform very quickly, and then we're going to see if there are any questions, then we can continue talking if they're not. But if you have questions, please send them in. But Rick, I noticed that, so I think from my time of watching the Google I/O sessions earlier today, there wasn't so much on security or identity announcements, but they did do something on passkey. And I know they're doing tons more in general on trying to improve security and identity security in Google products. Which leads me to my next question, which is, you do get these big, when we're talking platforms, you have real big platforms by, namely Microsoft, Google, Apple, etc. They are, all building in their own ways, bigger and bigger attempts at managing and verifying people's identity. Apple has already got a big thing going with that, and Google, of course, etc. What do you think about that? Do you see that as a nice complement to what you're doing, or a potential cannibalizer, or what?
Well, I think the first thing I have to say is it's validating. Once you see, I oftentimes tell folks, if you're going to see Google, Microsoft, Amazon approach a market, at the very least, it has to be a $1 billion kind of opportunity, because otherwise it's just a rounding error on their balance sheet. Mm-hmm. So on that end, I think in some ways, I think it's I joke that it's nice to at least be on the mind of Google at all, as opposed to mm-hmm. just another kind of fly on the wall for them.
Yeah.
With regards to that, I think that one of the big challenges within the space, and increasingly what we find is the evolution on the platform side of things for us, has been the challenges around just personal information and how a digital identity and a physical identity, they don't merge quite so cleanly at times. For example, like sometimes you want multiple people log into the same account, and things like passkeys and all of these innovations right now on the cybersecurity front around account security, that really protects you if, if I want someone to have access, they can have access type of approach. Mm-hmm. But for a lot of services that we more so power, whether that be, your DoorDash's, Robinhood's, or Coursera's, for them, it's a lot more about, well, I also need to make sure for my business that you aren't kind of like somebody else, even if you want to be. And I think around managing all of that, the personal information is really complex to manage on that front. So trying to kind of go down this bifurcated approach of we're going to do digital identity and then just layer on physical identity, as opposed to thinking about from a physical identity first perspective, I think is challenging. And if anything has shown that over the past, let's say 5 or 10 years, it's been the change in regulations from, the right to forget to, data residency and sovereignty. All of that, I think, has been really, really complex. So on that end, What I would say is, I think it's validating. It's absolutely scary for any startup out there if they're approaching this space. You know, there's a fear there, but I think it's really, really cool that, like, at the very least, we find a lot of value in this space. And I think our strategy, at the very least, will take a fair bit of time for these companies to really understand and deeply kind of be able to embed within their business, because it won't be a natural evolution from where they are today.
Cool. Okay. So here we go. I have a couple of good questions here. Someone called Wade. Thanks, Wade. How do you balance the need for speed and efficiency in identity verification with concerns about data privacy and security? Now, that's a great question because, you know, obviously you want to have a good user experience with these things. And of course, you know, with some of these services, the longer the experience, you know, the more the wheel turns, the more likely a customer is going to scram and go somewhere else. Then again, there are all these other issues with thoroughness and so on. But yeah, how do you balance that? What is your kind of take on that? I think that's a good one for Rick.
Well, so there's two parts there. The first of which is around data privacy. I think that's a must. Like, for any type of business out there that you're partnering with, privacy these days is an absolute top concern. And I think that's a philosophical thing for a business. Are you going to value privacy first, or are you thinking about, you know, leveraging that data for something else? And I think that's, for us, why we take such a strong approach towards this idea, this philosophy almost of, we're an infrastructural company. We're building that set of building blocks, the foundation for other companies to build on top of. And our goal is to partner with that business and hopefully provide value to them, not find an alternative way to monetize that data. And I think that's how you make sure that you're really never kind of encroaching upon the privacy angle. Security, I think, is a more fascinating and kind of like complex one, because in that regard, I think that's what's made Persona somewhat unique, is this building block approach, or building block based approach, means that for businesses of different kinds of needs, the security is different as well. I oftentimes tell folks that if you're delivering alcohol versus if you're getting a $1,000 loan versus $1 million loan, the expectations in terms of how you verify yourself, how you prove you are who you are, is different. If you're getting $1 million loan, I think, at least for myself, I would want a fair bit of scrutiny before they go off and extend this, or, you know, absolutely destroy my credit score. If I'm ordering, alcohol on a Friday night, I'd like that to be as quick and easily and hopefully as seamless as possible. And on those ends, I think, like, having multiple kind of approaches and making it such that the business can really tailor the solution to what makes sense is kind of how you achieve that trade-off between speed versus security.
Right. That's a good thing. Good point. Okay. Here's a question from Manish, which actually is a very important one, which I'll ask two ways. His way first is, what do you think is the most important security, or rather technological breakthrough in identity verification in the next 2 years? What do you think it will be? Thank you, Manish.
I think it's hard to predict in terms of exactly where this will manifest. I definitely think AI has already, like, produced a ton of value in this space. The ability for us now to detect liveness, to, you know, be able to, like, capture motion, to even, like, validate whether something is physically present is honestly better than ever. And I think, like, there's a lot more innovation to be captured from that overall perspective. Mm-hmm. I think the other big one right now that we're going to probably see is more opportunities in which, like, you can capture kind of passive signals and find ways to triangulate that across the entire organization. The biggest thing we're seeing these days, especially with the rise of LLMs, is whereas before I would say a lot of fraud oftentimes was one-off fraud in which, like, an individual would just try and poke around at things. We're seeing a huge rise actually of coordinated fraud attacks, and coordinated fraud attacks being where, you know, you have multiple actors or even, like, sophisticated actors band together to try to, you know, kind of create a long-term and, like, very, very complex approach towards, like, gradually kind of frauding someone for an extended period of time. And they're all linked together. And the way in which I think, like, we've been trying to tackle that, and with the way we've been thinking about that, has really been, how can we look at things not just from an individual level in which, like, I'm just proving who I am, but how do I also, for the organization, see, are there trends amongst your population? Right. Are there linkages across all of them? And hopefully leveraging, you know, AI to kind of, like, be able assess, hey, these actually might be a more coordinated kind of attack. And these coordinated attacks, I think, are increasingly expensive for the larger enterprises out there. LLMs make it easier than ever to kind of be able to tackle or form these kind of coordinated attacks. So if I were to say, I would say network-based kind of like population analysis is really going to be the next big trend that we're going to see kind of rise in the next 1 or 2 years.
That's super interesting because a lot of security companies say the same thing. I mean, that's an approach used in cyber all the time, is that they're looking at obviously the straight on, actors doing the bad stuff. But for sure, it's about patterns of behavior across the wider network. So I think that's super interesting. Okay, Mark, I'm going to turn the question around and ask you another one, which is, what do you think is going to be the biggest security, or rather, biggest threat? I say security because it is a security issue, but what is the biggest threat in verification in the next 2 years? The biggest threat to verification?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because it's really the inverse of Rick's answer, which is AI, right? It's both the tool and the problem, right?
Isn't it?
If you go and talk to banks right now, they're terrified that high value transactions, which have been verified through audio or biometrics, can be spoofed. And that same level of paranoia exists across industries. So I think in some ways we're back to the cat and mouse game, just with better tooling. And the advantage to a persona or whoever is providing the tooling is to stay in front of the pack. So I hate to just invert it, but I think that's what it's going to be. And so I think AI is both the challenge and the solution, and it's going to depend on who stays in front of who.
Yeah. There's something else that we didn't really talk about this much, but you guys are working. It's something that I think is very, very notable, is that this idea of, when I think is really interesting for probably other startups in the space to remember, is that Persona is working with gigantic companies. I mean, like some of the very, very biggest in verticals like retail and so on. They're working with companies that have all the resources in the world to build their own identity management services, and yet they go to like a third party to get it. And I think that just says so much about the opportunity in the space, right? Because there's this idea that it's this core competency and this focus on this area that is so deep, and as we've just kind of said, is evolving quite alarmingly fast with AI and so on. It creates quite an interesting space, which is a good time to segue probably to our pitch competition, to hear from, I think, some companies that may or may not be in security or identity or verification. But yes, so that's it for me. Thanks very much, you guys.
Ingrid, that was lovely. I learned a lot. Mark and Rick, thank you for talking to Ingrid. So what I took away from that is that I probably should not have one universal password for my entire family for all of our accounts. Probably a bad idea. Okay, so what we're going to do is... That's right. What we're going to do is we're going to jump into pitch practice. We do this every week, TechCrunch Live. We love it. We bring on 3 entrepreneurs who are going to pitch for 2 minutes. And then Rick and Mark will give 2 or 4 minutes of feedback. And we're looking for feedback around the pitch itself and the company. So we have 3 of them lined up. The first one is Sid from Dynasec. Sid, are you there? I see you. If you can turn on your camera and your mic. Okay. Thank you, Sid. You have 2 minutes to present your company. Start that now.
Hi, I'm Sid Prasanna, co-founder of Dynasec. Dynasec was farmed out of the Homeland Security Studio from FedTech, the accelerator out of DC area. My co-founders, Amanda Henninger, is a government contracts specialist, and one of the other co-founders, Don Jandra, is a software engineer. After we formed Dynasec, we have secured an exclusive license to a national labs cybersecurity solution to commercialize that. The application essentially addresses the cyber attacks on static IT infrastructure, wherein if the bad actors are aware of what kind of operating systems and platforms are being used, they can plan attacks. What the SMORE technology does that we have license for, it changes the static environment into a dynamic infrastructure. By enabling rotation of servers and operating systems, we make it very difficult to plan attacks and carry out them. A quick analogy for a soccer goalpost would explain this. Think of it as the soccer goalpost moving around. It's moving target defense, essentially. The goalpost will be moving around, or the size of the goalpost changes randomly. It makes it very difficult for the kicker to aim and kick. Similarly, we also changed the goalkeepers and making it very difficult. The operating systems and the servers changing randomly makes it very difficult for planned attacks. And we are looking at addressing this with the defense and large organizations, especially the data centers, then move on to the small and medium businesses. Would like your feedback on this. Thank you.
Rick, do you want to
thank
start?
You
or
so
should I?
much, Mark. Yeah,
Oh,
let's start with Mark.
Great. So first off, I thought it was a very strong pitch. I particularly appreciated the soccer analogy to make it relatable to someone that doesn't live the weeds of kind of the technical area that I'm sure Rick would understand, but you would lose me on. I think a lot about founder market fit when I'm looking at investing in companies. It's clear that given your experience and the first contractor you're now working with, that's what you have, and it sounds like your co-founders do as well. So yeah. I think a lot about the businesses I work with and every business I've been exposed to is going to have hard times, and it's people that are truly passionate about the problem space. They're going to take those hard times and power through versus walk away. So that's something I would say came through very clearly in your pitch. The things that I would still have questions on, and I know 2 minutes is an unfair amount of time to get you to do everything, is to really think about, if this business is wildly successful beyond your dreams, beyond my dreams, what does it look like 5 years from now? What does it look like 10 years from now? Do you own more defense contracts? Is this, you start in the hardest area for identity verification and security, which is going to be in government, but it's actually a solution that expands into retail and fintech and healthcare services. I think really trying to paint the picture to an investor on, if this really works, what is it going to be, would be a helpful thing. I'll pause there and I'll hand it over to Rick.
Really appreciate you pitching. So first off, my background is an engineer as well. So on these ends, I definitely can very, very clearly understand the unbelievable risk of essentially a data center takeover. The amount of impact it has on a business, I think, is tremendous. I think a lot of times you will be pitching to folks. Many of them won't have that direct kind of experience of understanding exactly how risky and how impactful that is. So if I had anything on the pitch itself, I would say bring that up front. We talk a lot about how your application works and all of that, but I think being able to express more the magnitude of the problem, how much that actually impacts a business if, your data center is hijacked, which effectively means pretty much all your computers, all of your data, all your storage, everything that can be hijacked. The magnitude of that and how a company has to react, I think would be really, really powerful for helping investors kind of understand the gravity of that problem. And on a personal note, I will also say, a lot of times for us in the early days pitching, it's difficult to kind of communicate that because identity verification oftentimes is viewed as, it's just a little simple process. It could just be an API call, and expressing how much more complex that is in practice and how much of a larger problem that is for businesses, I think can really make that more powerful. And I think bringing that up front is really, really powerful because right off the bat, you started kind of with you and your co-founders' backgrounds. And I think that already gave a lot of expertise. I would actually pull a little bit back in terms of explaining how everything works about it. But I think the analogy is really good because in all honesty, a lot of other folks, they will understand all the aspects of we kind of mask and swap out the OS, things like this. And they're in many investors' mind, not Mark's, of course, but many others, they're going to be wondering, well, isn't it just Windows and Macs out there in the world? I don't understand. Can't you rely on their security, right? And I think it's much more complex in reality than that, especially since so much of the world operates on Unix now.
Thank you.
All right, very good. That was great feedback. Thank you so much for presenting, Sid.
Appreciate it. Thank you, sir. Thanks for the opportunity.
Yes. Okay, we have two more. So next one we have Carolyn. Carolyn's coming from Clear OPS. Carolyn, are you there? There you are.
Yes. Hi. Thank you for having me.
Hi there. Well, you have 2 minutes to present your company, and that starts now.
Okay, great. So ClearOps has a unique mission to bridge the gap between privacy and security. Hi, I'm Caroline McCaffrey. I'm the CEO and founder, and I am a data privacy and cybersecurity attorney with over 22 years of experience. My co-founder is a cybersecurity expert with nearly 30 years of experience in securing IT infrastructure and networks. Our two developers round out the team, and they focus on secure coding, AI, and public data collection. ClearOps provides software to virtual chief information security officers, enabling them to increase their revenues by up to 60% by taking on more clients with our software that streamlines their process of building cybersecurity programs. The technology is twofold in that it facilitates building a knowledge base of both public and private information. ClearUps has over 200 million observations that it's pulled from curated and verifiable public data, giving virtual CISOs market insights that they can share with their clients. On the private side, ClearUps collects client data and employs natural language processing to generate repeatable answers about a client's privacy and cybersecurity operations for the purpose of conducting and responding to risk assessments. We have over 15 paying customers, and our go-to-market strategy addresses a whole new market, that is to provide affordable software by focusing on product-led growth. Our differentiator is our focus on the nexus between privacy and cybersecurity, driving alignment between those two departments. ClearUps has a product in market and is currently working with a network of over 300 virtual CISOs to further drive its product development. The Virtual Chief Information Security Officer is an emerging profession and represents an over $15 billion opportunity for ClearUps. Eventually, ClearUps will be the Salesforce for privacy and security operations. Thank you for your time.
That was great. Thank you so much. I like the background. We don't allow people to use slides because we don't have time, but I really like when people use that opportunity to put their logo behind them. Smart. Okay. Rick, let's start with you this time.
Look, the first thing I'll say is I think that's a really, really strong pitch. It's stronger than probably any pitches I've ever put together, if of all of them. So I think like really kudos to you, especially in like the short period of time you had in terms of putting all of that together. I think the biggest questions I would probably have, looking into all of this would be, number one, kind of like what is the more so on the what is the state of the art today? What are folks doing kind of on the market? If there's anything in which you can relay more about like the overall trend that you're seeing from a broader kind of like landscape perspective, I think that'd be really big because right now I think a lot of it, like the problem itself is very clear to me, but kind of like what has made it such that today this is more prevalent and important than ever. And as someone who deals a lot with kind of personal information, I think that I can at least like speak on a personal level. I can understand why this is increasingly important than ever. But I think for a lot of investors, understanding why now is a really, really key question. For any kind of like investor out there, the first question is, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, why didn't this exist? Why hasn't anyone else kind of tackled it yet? And then, the more you can kind of paint that direction towards, I think the kind of pitch of Salesforce for privacy and compliance can be very, very, it's memorable for an investor. On that end, I would also say, like, how do you kind of like drive towards that? And why is that going to be something of, why does centralization for that, all those processes matter? And again, pulling that trend to kind of paint that picture, I think would be really, really powerful. So a lot of the big question I would say is like addressing the why now would be really helpful. I'll pass it off.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, great feedback, Rick. We're going to recruit you over to the investing side after the entrepreneurial journey here. But Caroline, what a great pitch. From a substance standpoint, you packed a lot of information in. I would echo what Rick said in that sense. I also would agree with the why now. I think was a little bit less clear to me. So I think I would double click on that. Maybe the last piece on substance that I would comment on is, I think it's helpful sometimes to give an investor a sense for the existing tool stack. For example, OneTrust is a very important player in this category. You talked about your differentiator, but I think painting the picture of the sort of tooling that exists when you're going into these conversations helps people really build some empathy with the differentiation point. If you can explain why an incumbent is not necessarily solving the full problem. Stylistically, one piece of feedback I would give you is, while you were jam-packed with the substance, which was fantastic, I think you missed an opportunity to tell more of a personal story here, where you started by talking about your own background as a data privacy lawyer. And in some ways, that might be the most compelling part of the pitch. And I think you kind of glossed through it. And part of that was because it was clear, you had so much information you're trying to get through. But I think if I were just going to ask you, like, why did you had a very comfortable job. You could have just been a very successful corporate lawyer and not taken the risk of the entrepreneurial journey. Like, why did you make this decision? In some ways, that is as or more compelling than some of the facts that I think you kind of outlaid on the story. So just stylistically, I would encourage you to lean into, don't be afraid to put the notes down, to just talk from the heart on like, hey, this was a crazy thing I did. Here's why I did it. I think that sort of passion will come through to an investor.
I agree. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Carolyn, thanks so much for joining. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Well, that was great. We have one more. This guy was just selected a few minutes ago, so be nice. His name is Brad, and he's coming from New Cards. Brad, are you there? You are, sir. You have 2 minutes to present your company, and we'll start the timer now.
Great. So my name is Brad Dominy. I have an app called New Cards that approaches the privacy question more from the consumer side of things. So New Cards let you share your digital contact card with other people. And what makes it different is that it also uses end-to-end encryption to make sure that only you and the person that you share your card with have access to the information. So on my backend servers, there's nothing but just encrypted data. And so it makes it a lot more of a platform where people can trust that their home information, their home address, their private phone numbers, that won't leak out to marketing people. It won't be used for purposes outside of what they're doing. Those connections also like stay with you. So as you change your information on your card, that card's updates goes to all the people who have your card. So you have more awareness of where your information is and what information is out there. The initial stage is, to try and attract people that have a privacy focus to want to share contact information with others using New Cards. In the next stage, I'd really like to work on bringing that to more like, say, vendors, right? Right now, contact information is spread out across all kinds of databases. Everybody from TechCrunch to Apple to whatever has your name, your phone number, and all this information, and you have to continually put that in and form after form. I'd love to make it so that with end-to-end encryption, you could like arrange to exchange that information with a vendor, but not have to worry that that information is going to be stored off in some database somewhere. The real idea is to make that your contact information work. We have too many situations where people don't trust who calls them. They don't trust the emails that they get. They don't have any idea of where this is coming from. And again, with the rise of AI, it's becoming even more troublesome to, figure out what's true and not true. With New Cards, you have the connection that was made and that continued connection you can trust. And I'd be very happy to hear your feedback.
All right, Brad, thanks for that. And I understand we were kind of co-workers there for a while, huh? You worked at Yahoo for a long time?
For 5 years, yeah, it was a great place.
All right, well, that's who signs my checks at this moment, so that's great. Okay, Mark, let's start with you.
Yeah, first off, Brad, great job with it. Sounds like you got pulled in here with not too much time, so fantastic to hear about the product. So on a personal level, I would, this is something I would use. I think about the way that I care about tracking my own privacy across the internet, and there's such a dearth of good tooling. The idea for what you're describing is something that I would be happy to be in your beta customers and to use. I should also comment, my wife is a privacy lawyer and professor, so this is a topic that's very near and dear to my heart, to my family's heart, and I think a lot about this. So I think in terms of the description of the product, the product market fit, I can see it. The feedback I would give you is the pitch was very product focused, but you didn't get into as many of the business questions. And that would be one of the concerns I would have here, which is you've got no question, there's a product to be built here. The real question to me is there a business behind it that I could invest behind? So, how are you thinking about distribution? What do you think about pricing and packaging? How much can you charge consumers for this? Are consumers even the right people to charge, or is it going to be through a partner network? So really starting to get into some of those questions around that. And then the other thing is around team. Is a lot of it the early stage what I'm focused on. So hearing a little bit more about your background, how you think about hiring, who the first 3 or 4 people you would go to with funding would be important things I would focus on. But in a lot of ways, I feel like the product is the most important. You nailed that. And it's more just to complement that with, why is this business exciting and why as an investor should you get excited about it? I'll stop there and pass it to Rick.
Yeah, good feedback. Rick?
Hey, Brad. First and foremost, I definitely can see the value of this as well. Being essentially a vendor who operates on the other half of essentially this space. Thinking about digital wallets and kind of consumer identity is something that we're constantly kind of paying attention to. What's going to be the future of how individuals prove themselves online. So on that end, I get the idea very, very well. I do want to caveat any of my feedback with a very, very I think obvious fact is I'm a B2B guy. B2C is a completely different beast. So any feedback I give here, I'd probably take a lot of other people's, take it with a grain of salt, at the very least, I'd say. But one tip that I actually heard early on is if you're in B2B, function matters more than distribution as you're pitching. For B2C though, it's all about distribution. The ideas around mobile wallets, there's been a lot of approaches towards it, but the biggest question out there, I think, for many investors for B2C type businesses is how are you going to get people aware of it? Are there network effects in which more people become aware? What is your unique marketing angle? Are you going to approach something, like for Instagram, in which like there's a certain kind of like degree of innate virality to it? A lot of the historical challenges I've seen within like the mobile wallet approaches, in which they're very heavily B2C, is that distribution is one of the most challenging things. How do I actually get people to become aware without, suddenly getting into a very, very negative ROI cycle for like every single kind of customer that you acquire? And on that end, I'd say honing in on that, thinking about that, I think as like kind of the other half of the product itself, I think will be really, really powerful to kind of like tell investors the story of this is how I think about kind of going to market as a business.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's great. And Rick, what would it take for you to buy this company?
Well, for now, I think we got to make sure that we continue to stay on the B2B side, because I got to be careful around like making us kind of look at things from we've tried very, very much so to be this. You heard me talk about how we're an infrastructure player for so long, and I instead hope that we're more so partner than anything else. So that way we never kind of are starting to monetize off personal information, at least in our
Man, Rick, you have great media training. That was a fantastic answer. I don't know who your trainer is, but you give them some more money. All right. Well, I guess that about concludes this week of TechCrunch Live. Rick, Mark, thank you so much. And Brad, thanks for pitching. I really appreciate it. Next week, we have a very exciting conversation. Everyone's favorite topic, open high-performance object storage with Kubernetes. All right. So with that said, we'll see you guys next week. Same time, same place, noon Pacific on TechCrunch.com. Thank you so much. We'll see you then.